As the last light faded from the sky, the forest began to change. What had felt calm only moments before now seemed vast, cold, and full of hidden danger. There, between the deepening shadows, stood a single little goat, alone, unguarded, and suddenly aware that night was closing in. No flock, no shepherd, no way back. In a place where every rustle could mean death, one small mistake had turned into a fight for survival. But before the night was over, that helpless little goat would discover a power so great that even the fiercest beasts of the forest would turn away. Just a little while earlier, everything had seemed harmless. The flock grazed peacefully along the edge of the forest, while the evening breeze drifted softly through the trees. Among them was one little goat with a weakness she could never resist: fresh, young leaves. When she spotted a cluster hanging from a low branch, she told herself it would take only a moment. Just a few bites, then she would catch up. But temptation has a way of stretching time. 1 minute became 5, and 5 quietly became too late. By the time she finally looked up, the others were gone. The shepherd had disappeared, the path was no longer clear, and the darkening forest no longer felt like home. A sudden chill ran through her body. As darkness crept in from every side, she understood just how small she really was. Out there alone, she was no longer simply a goat that had wandered too far. She was prey. A wolf, a lion, even the silence between the trees felt like a warning. Her heart pounded as fear turned every shadow into a threat. And yet, in moments like this, faith begins where certainty ends. If you believe protection can come even in your darkest hour, comment 9 below. Trying to steady herself, the little goat forced her trembling legs toward the sound of running water. If danger was coming, she thought, then at least she would take one last drink before the night swallowed everything. At the riverbank, she lowered her head and drank quickly, her ears twitching at every sound behind her. Then something caught her eye. Pressed deep into the wet earth beside the water was a single massive paw print. It was larger than anything she had ever seen, heavy, sharp, and unmistakably powerful. She froze. This was no ordinary track. Before she could decide whether it meant hope or even greater danger, another figure stepped out of the shadows and moved toward the river. It was a wolf, lean, hungry, and confident. He padded toward the water with the easy arrogance of a hunter who believed the night already belonged to him. The moment his eyes fell on the little goat, a cruel smile spread across his face. To him, it was perfect. Water for his thirst, and a helpless meal waiting beside it. He stepped closer, expecting panic, expecting her to run, but the goat did neither. Though fear still gripped her chest, she stood her ground, lifted her head, and said with surprising calm, "Before you touch me, look at the paw print." The wolf stopped mid-step. His eyes dropped to the ground, and in an instant, the confidence on his face began to crack. The print was enormous, pressed deep into the mud with a force no small predator could mistake. He stared at it, then looked back at the goat, his mind racing faster than his instincts. That belongs to a lion," he muttered, suddenly unsure. The goat said nothing more. She didn't need to. Her silence did the work for her. To the wolf, that silence felt like proof. If she was standing there so calmly, then perhaps she was not alone after all. And with that thought, hunger gave way to fear, and the wolf backed into the darkness. For the first time that night, the little goat felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but it no longer owned her completely. One by one, other wild creatures passed near the river, And each time, she gave the same quiet warning: look at the paw print. Each time, they hesitated, reconsidered, and moved on. What had begun as desperation slowly turned into courage. Not because she had grown stronger, but because she had begun to trust the power behind what stood beside her. Sometimes confidence is born the moment we realize we do not face danger alone. But just as her courage began to settle, the forest answered with a sound that shook the night itself. A roar thundered through the trees, deep and commanding, and every creature within earshot seemed to freeze. Then he appeared. The real lion stepped out of the darkness, powerful, silent, and impossible to ignore. In that moment, the little goat felt all her borrowed bravery tremble. This was no rumor, no shadow, no imagined protector. This was the owner of the paw print standing before her. Still, though fear rose in her throat, she did not run. She looked at the lion, swallowed hard, and chose to speak, because sometimes faith is tested most when what we trust finally stands before us. With her voice unsteady but clear, the little goat said, "Since evening, no one has touched even a single hair on me because of that paw print." The lion lowered his gaze to the ground, then looked back at her, and something unexpected happened. He laughed. Not with cruelty, but with a quiet power that filled the riverbank. "That paw print is mine," he said. In that instant, fear and truth became one. The goat had trusted a sign without knowing its owner, and now the very strength she had leaned on was standing before her, alive, real, and greater than she had imagined. The lion looked at the little goat and said, "If my footprint has protected you this long, then stay here without fear. As long as I am in this forest, no one will dare harm you." From that moment on, the goat no longer trembled before the darkness, because she knew she was no longer alone. In many ways, we are just like that little goat, small, vulnerable, and surrounded by things far greater than ourselves. But when we stand under the covering of divine strength, fear begins to lose its voice. Faith does not remove every danger. It reminds us that danger is not the highest power. And when we truly trust God, even the things that once threatened us begin to step back. So the question is not whether darkness exists. It does. The question is what covers you when it comes. The little goat survived not because she was fierce, but because she learned to stand beneath a power far greater than her own. And that same truth still speaks to us today. When fear surrounds you, when life feels larger than your strength, remember this: you do not have to face it alone. If this story spoke to your heart, type Amen in the comments and hold on to that faith tonight.